So I survived. Me and my gallbladder survived my emergency flush. In my previous video, I explained, what I was going through at the time. And I explained kind of the beginning process of the liver gallbladder flush. And I had quite the experience, I must say. And I really wanted to document this for those who are dealing and going through the emergency situation that I was in. I've done lots of gallbladder flushes over the years. I've never been consistent about doing them, and I regret that very much. And the thing is you have to get all those stones out in order to stop producing the stones. Because if you don't have proper bile flow, then you will get stones. You need fresh bile all the time because that fresh bile prevents the formation of stones. But you can't start producing that fresh bile until all the stones are gone. So they say to continue flushing until there's no more stones, and then do a maintenance flush every year. I have one friend who followed the rules, and she does a flush every single year loyally, and she still to this day does not have stones anymore. So it's pretty amazing. Anyway, onward. I will tell you about my experience. So about 15 or so, I took my oil concoction and I laid propped up for 20 minutes without moving, and I listened to some really good relaxing music, and I put all this good loving energy into my gallbladder, and nothing really did anything. And I was like, I don't feel nothing. Nothing's moving at all. And normally you can start feeling things moving. Come to find out, I had lots of teeny tiny stones, lots, but I also had lots of big stones. So eventually pressure was building up. I could feel the pressure building up, and it just felt like it was not passing. And so I actually had read that it's recommended to lay on your side in some instances, especially if there's some discomfort, but it also helps the process, which is contrary to what I would intuitively think. Your gallbladder's on your right. Why would you lay on your right when you have to pass them to the left? So, So I did. After my 20 minutes was up, and after waiting a while for anything to happen, I laid on my right side, and then I felt pressure build up even more and got a lot more uncomfortable. And so I laid back on my back, and then bam, one right after another, I felt pass from my gallbladder all the way down my center. It was a painful process, mind you. Nothing compared to what I had been through the night before. Nothing. And keep in mind too, I didn't do any prepping. Prepping is to soften the stones so they're not so painful to pass. My stones were hard, so they were painful. So I passed a bunch of these stones, and I could tell there was this one that was like floating around and just like scraping and poking my gallbladder. It was incredibly painful, and it was like jabbing me, and I'm like, oh, like it just was so intense. I could feel it moving all over the place. And so I laid on my side and laid on my back and laid on my side and laid on my back, and it just would not pass. So I thought, well, maybe I need more magnesium. Maybe it's not enough for me, and I need to dilate the ducts more. And so I took more magnesium, and that still wouldn't do it. So I took more magnesium, and I decided, well, what the hell? Maybe it just needs more force. I'll take some more, I'll essentially do another flush. So I took some more oil and lemon juice, which was disgusting. And I laid there, and I fell asleep for a little bit, and I felt the pressure building. I laid on my side, and then the pain got worse, and so I laid on my back and fell asleep. That was about 5 in the morning that I finally fell asleep, and so 7:30 in the morning when I officially woke up, the pain was gone. So I literally passed that stone without feeling enough pain to wake me up, at least. I'm pretty sure I was beyond exhausted by that point. It was like a long night of labor, but not even as close to as painful as labor or the previous night that I had experienced. So I think somewhere between 1:30 and 3:30 in the morning, I started having bowel movements. I had my first flush bowel movement. And I think that I think passed when I took my first dose of magnesium. And they were calcium stones. They were rock hard calcium stones. They were very small, but they were jagged edges and just, that was, I kind of can't help but think that maybe some of those were what was causing the significant amount of pain that I was in the night before. I don't know. But there was essentially just a cluster of them that came out, and I'll show images of them in the next video. The difference between the cholesterol stones and the calcium stones is, well, obviously they're hard, but you can tell a difference because they do not float. And so I passed those, and then come morning, by 7, I was, passing bile stones and tons of bile stones, like unbelievable amounts. Like, I'm pretty sure I had like a half a gallon of stones in that I passed through this whole process. It was just insane. But from the pictures that you will see, I did not keep all of the stones. Like, I washed a lot of the stones through the strainer because they were so teeny tiny that it didn't even matter. So I just, when I thought my gallbladder was going to explode, I see why now. I see why. And my liver just felt like it was going to explode too. It was so bad. So bad. So going back to that stone that was poking the hell out of me, I see what it was now. And it was about 1.5 inches wide stone. I don't know, like biggest width maybe 3/4 of an inch wide and 1.5 inches long. And it makes sense now why it was having such a hard time passing, because it kind of had to get the right angle to get down the bile duct. And so I can see why now it was having a hard time. But I want that to serve as an example of how big of a stone you can pass. Because I know there's plenty of people that have passed 1.5 inch wide stones. That's not uncommon. That's where it's like, I've seen the things people have passed with zero pain because of the liver gallbladder flush. I know my body can do this. I know it can. I really wanted people to see what we're capable of doing without, a lot of these people get stuck in this emergency situation and they've never done a liver gallbladder flush in their lives. And I have, thankfully. And so, like me adding a second a second flush to my emergency flush, it was kind of an intuitive thing based on my previous experience. I'm a little more daring, but just know, I mean, there's additional things that you can do to help you through the process, especially if it's an emergency flush. But clearly, my body was severely congested and it's like ready to release, which is a good sign. When you think of a gallbladder attack, it is kind of a good sign that your body's trying to purge, but it just can't.